Welcome to the Terry Sullivan Show. Today's guest, Judge Ellie Fox. And now a man to expect great things from, but prepare for disappointment. It's Terry Sullivan.
I don't know. I don't know where do you... That was offensive.
Was it?
Take your feelings out the door. They don't matter anymore.
Oh, bless your heart.
We're in New America.
That's where he believes.
You can put on your big boy pants.
You good?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm with Judge Ellie Fox today, and Holly, it's so good to have you.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're
to be
here. And this is probably going to turn into several shows because you have a very colorful history. Yeah, very colorful history. Now, you grew up in Texas, in McAllen, right down there close to the border. I went to McAllen one time when I was in high school playing football, and we had what was it called? It wasn't a tournament, but it was a playoff. It was a playoff game. We had to go all the way to McAllen to play that playoff game, so that was kind of a neat trip. So that's where you grew up. And
Born
then
and raised.
And then you went to let's pass way forward. You went to law school at Baylor.
No, undergrad at Baylor, law school at Texas Tech.
Texas Tech.
That's where you get your guns up. That's where it started.
So, but then you ended up in New York.
I did.
So how did that happen? So let's do it this way. You get your law degree, and you become a prosecutor.
Correct. For just under 5 years.
Yeah, and you did that. Were you a prosecutor?
I went back home, South Texas, Hidalgo County.
Okay, all right, and that's where you were a prosecutor.
Yes.
Did you enjoy that?
I did.
Yeah.
I like the courtroom. It's my playground.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of people can't do it. You know, a lot of people can't. You got to be not only have a law education and understand the law, but you got to be able to sell, right?
It's the salesmanship, right?
Yeah.
The appellate lawyers have the brains. We have the mouths. We have the entertainment value. You know.
Give me a case that you prosecuted back in that day, that right off the top of your head that you can remember that was very interesting.
Well, I started off misdemeanor and then quickly went to felonies. And the one that I remember the most was probably one of the last ones that I tried that actually opened the door to my next adventure. A young girl and her boyfriend had broken up, but they had recently gotten back together. So they had taken a ride in his new sports car out Mission, Texas, out near the canals, you know, an area that wasn't populated, where people weren't around, so they're probably going to make out or whatever. But instead, they were tracked down by 3 guys. They got into a car chase. They wrecked out, and ultimately those 3 guys shot at him, tried to kill him, and then raped her vaginally, orally, rectally, and she wound up making her way to Mission Hospital with thorns and cacti all over her body. That is one of the ones I remember the most.
Did they catch the guys that did
Oh, yeah.
that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was prosecuting 3 of them, and that's when I met some federal agents we were sharing information on one or two of the other guys that they were prosecuting federally. And so we were sharing information. That's when they said, hey, have you ever thought about being an agent? Mm-hmm. And I said, not really.
Now, you're not married at this time, right?
No, I'm single.
Yeah, yeah. So they put this opportunity out there, federal agent, and you said, hey, I might like to do that.
Yeah. They said, you're a lawyer, you're a Spanish speaker, you're female, you know, you're 3 of the 5 things they looked for at that time. Mm-hmm. And I had a boyfriend I really couldn't get rid of at the time. So I used that as a good opportunity.
His name wasn't John, was it?
No, no.
So tell me the process tell me the process of getting to a job with the FBI.
I don't know what it is now because I don't really have a high opinion of the FBI right now. But at the time, you applied, and then if you made it past the first section, then you went to a second, I think, interview, and then they did a test. I think I was in Cincinnati, Ohio. I think that's where I did that. And if you passed that test, then you did a polygraph, and then did a background, and then either were denied or you're accepted.
How long is the process?
For me, it wasn't that long.
Yeah.
It moved pretty fast. Unfortunately, I had smoked a marijuana cigarette once in my life, so the Bureau...
But you didn't inhale. Let's talk about it. You didn't
No, I
inhale.
inhaled. It made me sick. I'm not going to pull a Clinton, or who was it?
Clinton,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
no, I'm going to be straight up honest.
Yeah, yeah.
It made me sick. To the point, I was sick, both ends sick. Yeah,
Wait a minute.
so-
Does Ellie know that you smoked a
Yeah, I'm honest with my kids about everything.
She's a trip. Mm-hmm. We're going to get back to this, but it just triggered. Ellie works for me at the restaurant, and I think that girl knows every song that plays, and not only that, but she can sing it like the artist that's singing it.
She has a beautiful voice. She does not get that from me.
Yeah,
She gets that from my mother, my grandmother.
yeah.
Beautiful voice. I hope she sings in the choir and goes on maybe to be I don't know. So
She's a trip.
she doesn't know it though. She doesn't know her talent, even though we tell her.
She is like you though. She kind of lives on her own world, to the beat of her own drum.
That's right. Nobody else can hear it.
So you got hired for the FBI,
Yes.
and they sent you to New York.
Correct.
How different was New York than Texas? I mean, that's a.
Oh my God.
Did you just wake up one day and go, oh, I don't know, I didn't sign up for this?
On the way to New York in my Toyota 4Runner, full to the rim, I wound up driving through New Jersey. I mean, I should have turned around then. Have you ever been to New Jersey? Anyways, but I drove through the town I was in, and I was really, what the hell did I do? I get to my apartment, I'm laying on the hardwood floors because my stuff didn't show up for a week, I think. And I will admit that I cried.
Yeah.
I really was like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
This is a place where you can't have a pickup truck with an open bed.
Right.
You can't barbecue because it'll cause a fire. I mean, so many restrictions left and right.
Yeah.
And the people at that time were not real friendly. But I learned over time it's because you have to be really weary of, it's not like Texas.
Yeah.
It's just a little different. And so when you go into a store, hi, I'm Holly. I'm from Texas. It wasn't you weren't received real well right up front.
Yeah.
They're like, who are you and what do you want from me?
Right.
And then who the?
So let me ask you this: so New Yorkers, they can be. We down here, we just think they're rude, but at the same time, they're really blunt and forward and honest. I mean, we
They don't have
mistake.
time to dilly dally.
Yeah. We mistake that for being rude sometimes, but they're just because they're just so different from our personalities down here in Texas. But they're really just straightforward people.
But once you get to know, I won't speak to all people, but my experience over time when I got to know the people from New York, because New York City didn't have really a lot of New Yorkers. It was a lot of transplants, a lot of people from other places coming to work.
Yeah.
But the true New Yorkers, once you got past the facade of, we got to find out who you are before we let you in.
Yeah.
Really wonderful people.
Yeah.
So.
And plus, you were a long way from home.
Very. It was lonely. Yeah.
Yeah. Single woman, long way from home, new job, didn't know what to expect. First day on the job, tell me about it. First day on the job as an FBI agent.
That's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Well, the first squad we're on is surveillance, because they primarily want the agents to get to know the area.
Yeah.
So that's eye-opening. I don't know if you've ever driven in New York City.
No. Hey, the first time I ever went to New York City, I had a cab that was taking me to Manhattan, and the cab broke down, and I was expecting another cab to come get me, and the driver said, "You can walk." And I'm pulling my suitcase, you know, tourist written across my head. I'm pulling my suitcase to my hotel that was about 2 blocks down the road, thinking I'm never going to get out of this city.
Yeah, it's a very different world, very fast-paced. But the surveillance part was really so you could get to know the streets, get to maneuver a car, get to move quick. And it was outside of New York, in a city where all the cars were, in an undisclosed location. But that's where we would meet. And you do that for 6 months, and then you get assigned your squad. My first squad was white-collar crime, and any kind of money coming from the government that was going out, we investigated that. I think they must have gotten rid of that bureau now because they don't seem to be investigating any of that anymore.
Seems to have slowed down.
A lot. Yeah, they seem to look elsewhere to people that were actually bringing truth. I don't know.
So let's define that. So white-collar crimes. So people that were abusing government money.
Like Medicaid, Medicare, durable medical equipment,
doctors?
Student loans. Yeah, doctors, lawyers. It was organized crime too. A lot of homes, the HUD loans that they would get, they would find a straw buyer, usually preachers or somebody that got their preacher license in the mail, would be the owner of the home, and they would the bank would give the money. Usually you do it in portions, and they come and check up to make sure you're actually doing the work with the money. But unfortunately, they would get 75% of the money. We'd go into these homes, and there's no roof, there's no floor, there's bird crap, there's sometimes dead people in these homes. There's not been $1 spent on that home. Meanwhile, these government loans go out, and there's millions.
Yeah. So they take the money and do personal things with it, buy airplanes or whatever, do personal things with it. Your job at the time was to arrest them or start a case on them and investigate and arrest them. Yeah. Well, what was the toughest case you ever did concerning that?
I didn't do a lot on my squad. As a Spanish speaker, I did probably more on other squads. Going in for drugs and crimes against children. They didn't do a lot back there on that, but I was like the second or third person in the room translating behind the shield.
Yeah. So I mean, that's Holly. I'm trying. My mind is going crazy right now because from a prosecutor to an FBI agent, where the rules are totally different, totally different job. How long did it take you to get used to that culture? And was there a time when you said, I don't know about this?
My mom came to visit me, and when she learned that I had learned the F word, and I told her that was just an adjective, an adverb, an article adjective, a noun, a verb, it's every, my mom didn't like it. She was like, well, I'm going to find me a bar of soap. That's when I realized that the culture of just New York and law enforcement had affected me. It was. I realized as time went on that it probably wasn't the best fit for me. Even though I loved investigations, I loved tracking money, I loved following the dark money, which I do a little bit now. But when I'm sitting in a courtroom watching assistant U.S. attorneys fumble and not be able to get in evidence that I had spent a minimum of 6 months to a couple of years.
Your lawyer comes out in you.
Yeah, and I'm sitting in the back room. I'm now the cop in the back of the room. And you can't say anything. You can't be involved in the case. But I sent a note to the prosecutor, Rule 403B, Rule 6, And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, you're a lawyer? Then they treated me differently. But I was disappointed in the quality of lawyers that were prosecuting our cases. I really was. Plus, I just missed it. I missed the courtroom. I missed trying cases. And I had been in a couple situations up close to that time where I could have lost my life. And I realized, is this really what I want to do?
I mean,
not at the time, because you're fight or flight. When you're in the bureau, they at the training at Quantico, they let you know times where agents have been killed and stuff, and they ask, are you prepared to die? Well, I wasn't married, and I had a tough dad, and I was like, I can do this. I had brothers, Nothing like putting a head through sheetrock. I mean,
Yeah, but you got to be. You got to have kind of a warrior.
I'm a warrior
Mindset to be in that kind of law enforcement. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I guess if I had to, I could, but I'm not wired that way. You have to be wired that way, I think.
Well, I found, and I've talked to a lot of my police officer friends, a lot of police officers go join the Bureau, and then they leave. They go back to being a real cop, because you really are a glorified cop. And unless you're on a certain kind of squad, and you do a certain kind of thing, you're not really doing the really scary police work. Even in Quantico, when they do training, I actually got shot in training, not in real life, obviously, but these training scenarios where I was going to arrest a banker, and asked him to come with us. He asked if he could get, I don't remember if it was his phone or his keys. He said, sure. Well, he pulled out a gun and shot me. So it was preparing you for, just because they've been to the pen before, and they're tattooed up or drug dealers, whatever. Even that banker or that lawyer, they're vulnerable too, and they're more likely to do something than these other people, because people that go to prison are constant in the criminal enterprise. They know that going to prison is the cost of doing business. Yeah. They just don't want to get caught. When they get caught, it's like, the jig is up. The news is out. They finally got me.
Do the time type deal. Yeah.
So that was a really eye-opening lesson for me. But you always are alert, watching hands, you're never off. Yeah, exactly. I'm watching the hands.
Stop watching my hands.
A slight move to this, or just like this. It's like the slightest of moves.
Yeah.
And that's helped me in jury selection. I mean, there's so much that your hands, your body, your facial expressions, the things that you say, how you say them, when you say them, they tell me something about you.
Yeah.
And so I've used that to my advantage.
Does my body movements right now tell you I'm scared to death? I'm getting more scared.
Either that, or you're ready for your regular morning bowel movement. One of the two. I don't know.
Well, we don't want to go there. What you got in that cup there? We don't want to talk about that. So Holly, you were telling me a story, and I want you to tell, because this was a kind of a cool, funny story about going to a restaurant, and take us down that road.
So I volunteered. I was single, and I spent a lot of time at church, because I'm a Christian, and I spent a lot of time at church and volunteering because I didn't have a spouse, and it was either work life and then it was church. So I decided to volunteer at the Ronald McDonald house. I have a real heart for kids, and are you familiar with the Ronald McDonald? Okay.
I am.
So these people would come and stay there at a discounted rate or free while their child was undergoing treatment.
Yeah.
So I would go every Thursday and volunteer, play games, just spend time with them. And I parked at the same location on the east side every time. Well, one or two of those Thursdays a month, my car would, first when you park, you have a placard. And it looks like a government, they're beat up cars, government issued placard, which clearly said FBI on it, And there'd be limos blocking my car in every time. So I'd go into the restaurant, and I didn't think I had a Texas accent, but I'd go in and I'd politely ask them, is there anybody own a limo out here? Either can you take me for a ride or can you move it? Because I got to get home, So they would kind of imitate me.
They knew it was an FBI car because it said it was.
Well, they had to have, because as the story goes along, meanwhile, you walk in this restaurant. It's a small, intimate space, but in the back area is a table of about 15 guys. And there's like one or two over here eating by themselves. And there's a lot of banter back and forth. And I was a thespian in high school, so I had a fun time with it.
So you didn't mean anything. You didn't know who they were.
No.
You just wanted to get out and go home.
No, when I learned who they were, it was, but I was just need to get home. I was tired, and someone's car was blocking my way. So we had banter back and forth, soprano style. That word that I used that my mom didn't like, there was some of that, back and forth. And
they were true New Yorker. Well,
they were New York.
Yeah, true New Yorkers.
Yeah. Or maybe it came from Italy, but in New York. Have you ever watched The Sopranos? That's kind of like that mentality, There was a characters, forget about it. Fuck you, I'm gonna take you out,
Right.
That kind of thing. So it's probably 9 months later, I get called into the SAC, which is Special Agent in Charge office. Why are you? We noticed that you've been parking every Thursday at this street. And of course, because I'm a rule follower.
Yeah.
And the Bureau had a rule that you have to make the most direct route home in a government-issued vehicle. So that was, depending on which side I got to my home, So they made me sweat a little bit, and then they revealed to me that they had been doing an investigation on that place, and it was equipped to monitor, but that the people in that place were not really engaging or talking much.
Yeah.
Because they assumed maybe the Bureau was following them. But when this Texas girl showed up and started parking in front with a placard every Thursday, they, on recording, said, like, basically, how dumb could the Bureau be if they really were following us? They wouldn't park an agent right in front, Come on,
So they're thinking that we're under investigation. Well, that's just normal for us.
Well, are we? We're not sure. They didn't know. They just assume it's like the cost of doing business. They're always leery.
Yeah.
So I was told at that meeting that the agents who reviewed the videos had a great time. It was like they brought popcorn and pizza, and because it was like pure entertainment to them, And then I was told, you need to keep going there every Thursday. Well, that's when it became new and different, because now I knew what I was dealing with. So it
now
was
you're
like,
on a job.
I was like, I had to, psych myself out and go into the world of unknown, But ultimately, they did get arrested. And this guy that got arrested asked for me to fingerprint him.
So we're not going to talk about what family it was, but obviously
a crime family.
It was a crime
Organized
family.
crime family.
Yeah.
And of course, I took the opportunity, and because I got to know these people. Kind of weird, just on Thursday for 15 minutes. When I was fingerprinting him, I said, "Hey, I'm being real nice to you here. I'm gonna make sure you get that meal, or get that soda, what you want, and I've been real kind to you, right? I haven't done the cuffs too tight and stuff. No, you've been really kind to me." I said, "Well, could you do me a favor?" He goes, "It depends, but I'd do anything if I could for you. Could you give me a confession?" And he's like, forget about it, So, okay, damn it, So that, I had things like that happen all the time.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird.
So this particular group, did they end up going to prison? Yeah. They probably still don't like you much.
I don't know. I think they realized, this person so much as said, "We know this wasn't you. You didn't know what was going on," because that's why we were dumb enough to talk, because I guess you were dumb enough to not figure it out. I don't know what it
That's a
was.
funny story.
I guess from the Valley, I wasn't used to the mob.
Yeah.
Now that they made it aware, like, this is organized crime, I'm like, oh crap, I should have known, 15 Italians sitting in a room eating, pasta and tiramisu and whatever, by themselves with just a couple people at different tables watching, It should have hit me, but it didn't until then, so.
Holly, so now, so you went from FBI agent to being a judge, is that right?
When I left the Bureau,
why did you leave the Bureau?
My dad wasn't doing well physically, and they told us that we would, New York agents, it would take me about 15 years to get to Texas. The wait list was that long. Oh. And I knew that I didn't want to be married to my job. I am old-fashioned, believe it or not. As a Christian, my husband's going to be the spiritual leader of my family, and I don't expect a man to follow me in a career, so, and I did want to get married. and they weren't going to let me take a leave to go be with my dad. And so I made the decision. It's kind of like the 5-year mark or before. You either decide to be a lifer, you stay in, or you get out and go back. So, and I missed the courtroom. That was the big thing. And jumping off a building, being shot at, it kind of made this decision a little easier too.
Sure.
There's a lot of things that were happening at that time. I thought, I want to live and I want to be married and be fruitful and multiply. So I decided to leave, and I found a job at a law firm with the help of a friend in downtown Dallas, doing medical malpractice and insurance defense.
I can tell you love that job.
I'm sorry, I fell asleep. Yeah. Well, they thought, this is an agent. She'd be really good at forensic document review. I am, but it's boring, unless you're looking at something interesting. But they had a huge insurance fraud case, and it just was not my thing. I didn't see a courtroom for trial once. I think I went to, I had 2 or 3 hearings in 2 years. I just knew that wasn't for me. Plus, by that time I got married, trying to have kids. We had some miscarriages. Kind of had my Job moment where I laid on the floor and just, God,
Yeah, John. Let's talk about John.
Yeah.
John is your husband, and of course I don't know him all that well, but he seems like just a remarkable man.
Yeah, he is. He loves, though. When we first got married and went to parties, he would tell everybody that he was from New York, and that he would, in his roundabout way, say, "How'd you meet Holly?" He said, "Well, you want the true story or do you want the other story?" And they're like, "Well, I'm not sure." He said, "Well, the FBI was investigating my family. And we're going to trial. She walked in from the back room where they process inmates. She saw me, and that was it. They told her, you got to choose him or the Bureau, and she chose me." So, everybody's like, why'd you bring this, criminal to this party? He loved telling people that story. But he was from New York, upstate near, it was New Windsor, but near, what's the military school that's up there? West Point. Up near West Point. But he was living in Texas, and we had switched states. So he was friends with my brother. That's how we met.
He's a great guy, and then you have 2 kids, and both girls, great kids, great family, great Christian family. Holly, everybody that I know that knows you, and in law enforcement that's done business with you, speaks so highly of you, and that you're always giving, you're always ready to give back to your community. I appreciate you being here. We could talk a lot about this because I really wanted to talk about why you carry the Declaration of Independence with you, but our show is ended. We'll talk about
the Constitution.
We'll talk about it another time. Terry, take us, buddy.